Callum Johnson has returned to Frank Warren and he signed a long-term promotional deal. He was with Warren earlier on in his career before they parted company and he started working with Eddie Hearn on a fight-by-fight basis. But the relationship between Hearn and Callum Johnson's trainer and manager Joe Gallagher has deteriorated over the past couple years. And that led to, according to Joe Gallagher, his fighters being sidelined by Hearn, being effectively frozen out to some degree. Now, Hearn disputes this. He claims that he offered Callum Johnson at least one fight in recent times, but suggested that Johnson basically priced himself out and was asking for too much money, especially in light of the current economic downturn in the world. So who knows who's telling the truth, whether it's Team Johnson or Eddie Hearn. I've got no idea. But this is the issue with working on a fight-by-fight basis with a promoter. If the relationship goes sour and the promoter decides not to give you any fights, there's no legal recourse for you because you have no contract, right? But the flip side of that, the positive is you can leave. If you're in a situation with a promoter where you do have a long-term contract, yes, you can demand that he gives you fights, but he might just go for the minimum requirements in the contract. You know, he might give you fights that are not very meaningful. He might give you fights that don't pay you that much money and so on. So there's pluses and minuses to having a long-term contract and working on a fight-by-fight basis as well. But as I say, one of the positives of working with a promoter on a fight-by-fight basis is if it goes sour, you can just leave. So he's decided to leave and rejoin Frank Warren. Now, Warren, of course, has got Lyndon Arthur and Anthony Yarde, and most people would assume that that's what Johnson would be looking to do is fight one of those guys. But unfortunately, according to the quotes here from Joe Gallagher, that's not their plan. Joe Gallagher says, Callum is the man to go and get that world light heavyweight title for Frank and bring it back to Britain. That will lead to big defenses against the likes of Lyndon Arthur and Anthony Yarde, who Frank also promotes. So it appears that Joe Gallagher wants Callum Johnson to fight for a world title before he faces off against his domestic rivals. And people are looking forward to Callum Johnson fighting the likes of Joshua Buatsi, for example, before either of them gets a world title shot again. Obviously, Callum Johnson's already fought Beterbiev. Buatsi's yet to fight for a world title, but people are looking forward to that domestic showdown. Domestic showdowns go down very well with the British boxing public. But we might have to wait a while before that happens in the case of Callum Johnson after rejoining Frank Warren, if the comments of his trainer-manager, Joe Gallagher, are anything to go by. Now, another reason why Callum Johnson may have re-signed with Frank Warren is because of Warren's relationship with the WBO and also his relationship with Top Rank and their promoter, Bob Arum. Because Bob Arum promotes Artur Beterbiev, who Callum Johnson's already fought. He dropped Beterbiev in that fight. He gave Beterbiev probably the toughest fight of his career. I know it was a fairly short fight, but it was a real tough fight for Beterbiev, if you guys remember. And Callum Johnson feels like he didn't jump on Beterbiev when he had him down and had him hurt, and he let the opportunity slip through his fingers. So maybe he fancies another crack at Beterbiev. And again, given Warren's good relationship with Top Rank Bob Arum, that may be a possibility. But I have to imagine a greater possibility will be Callum Johnson fighting for a vacant WBO title, or perhaps fighting somebody like a Joe Smith Jr. for the WBO title if Joe Smith Jr. manages to secure it. Because, as I say, the WBO title is currently vacant. You got Lyndon Arthur at number 3, Vlasov 2, Smith Jr. 1. So you have to imagine that this belt will be contested by 2 of these guys out of the top 4, let's say, maybe top 5 with Ramirez there as well. Now, currently, Callum Johnson is not ranked in the WBO top 15, But do not be surprised now that he's signed with Frank Warren to randomly see Callum Johnson appearing somewhere in this top 15, especially if he has, let's say, a fight for some intercontinental WBO belt, you know, one of the little minor trinkets they have. Don't be surprised if he then pops up in the top 10, top 15 somewhere, maybe far higher than you would expect. So let's see what happens with that. But what do you guys think of Callum Johnson versus Joe Smith Jr.? If they're looking to not fight Arthur or Anthony Yarde first and go for a world title fight instead, how do you think he would fare against Smith Jr.? Smith Jr. is not the most sophisticated fighter out there, but he's big, he's strong, he's tough, he can punch, as we all know. He's experienced, he's been in there with some very good fighters. Would any of you pick Callum Johnson to beat him? Let me know. Vlasov, same thing. And even though Joe Gallagher is indicating that they don't intend to fight Arthur or Yarde anytime soon, how do you think Callum Johnson would do against Arthur or Yarde? I know Yarde isn't that highly thought of, it would seem, by a lot of British boxing fans at this point. But still, you know, he's been in there against Sergey Kovalev, lost a close fight to Lyndon Arthur recently. He's still a name on the British light heavyweight scene. How do you think a fight between him and Callum Johnson would go? The Boatsy fight, well, that's pretty much out at this point, isn't it? If that was going to happen, it would have happened when he was with Eddie Hearn. Although he didn't have a long-term contract with Hearn, he wasn't technically promoted by Hearn. If Hearn wants to use that as a get-out clause, I guess it's true. But he was working with him on a fight-by-fight basis like so many Eddie Hearn fighters do. So, I mean, for example, Dylan White works with Eddie Hearn on a fight-by-fight basis. But of course, there's incentive for Eddie Hearn to get Dylan White out all the time because he sells a lot of tickets. Callum Johnson, unfortunately, doesn't sell a lot of tickets. Well, obviously, we're not selling tickets at the moment, but sells pay-per-views, right? Brings in the viewers. Dylan White does that. Callum Johnson, unfortunately, doesn't do that. And therefore, Eddie Hearn could say, well, I'm not getting on with your manager. I'm not really getting on with you. I'm not going to give you any fights. I don't have a contract with you, so what can you do? Callum Johnson's decided to leave. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. Do you like this move by Callum Johnson? As I always say, fighters need to do what they believe is best for them. They can't worry about being loyal to promoters or any such nonsense. It's a business. The promoter will throw you on the scrap heap as soon as you're of no use to him. So you have to have the same attitude towards the promoter as far as I'm concerned, especially given the fact that you've only got a finite amount of time within which to make life-changing sums of money. So I wish Callum Johnson all the best, and I hope this is the right move for him at this stage of his career. He is 35 years of age, so he does have to get a move on. Currently 18-1, 13 KOs. Last fight was against Shawnee Monahan, and apparently he did get paid quite well for that. That was with Eddie Hearn's involvement, wasn't it? Yeah, Matchroom Box. There was a bunch of people promoting that show. Was that the one where, okay, Sergey Kuzma versus Dwayko, Bivol versus Joe Smith Jr.? I think I remember that show. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. If you'd like to access all my boxing content advert-free and enjoy the convenience of listening via a podcast app with the option to download in high-quality MP3, then consider joining me on Patreon. In addition to the aforementioned perks, you'll also gain access to exclusive weekly live stream Q&A sessions and hangouts, as well as uncensored, no-holds-barred uploads which are too blue for YouTube. This includes my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Boxing Extra. There's no contract, there's no commitment, it's only £2.50 a month, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of hardcore boxing enthusiasts by signing up with me here on Patreon today.